CO, hello, I'm Cade Thomas. I'm the host of Double Feature Movie Club. We're about to head into a little special episode that Diane and I recorded a few weeks ago. It's about our favorite and least favorite movies we've talked about on Double Feature Movie Club. Now, I know we haven't been recording new episodes recently, so people are wondering, where's it at? We said in August. We are starting back in August. This is a little announcement before the video starts about our release date. We are starting back Sunday, August 21st, and it'll be weekly from that point on. Our first two movies we'll be discussing is A Ghost Story and Extraordinary, two ghost movies, so you know that Diane's really excited about that. So here we are. I'm just going to show you this cool video that we put together about our favorite and least favorite movies, and we'll see you August 21st. For the second half of the first season of Double Feature Movie Club. CO, hello, and welcome to this little bonus episode of Double Feature Movie Club. Currently, our show is on a mid-season break to return in August for our second part of our first season. But Diane and I decided that we would join you here for a special episode where we talk about our favorite movies that we have featured on this first season and some of our least favorite, and a little fun ranking. And hopefully you can take from this, if you didn't watch them while we watched them, you can be like, okay, these are the ones that I need to watch or whatever, because these are the ones that we would recommend. So we're going to first talk about our least favorite. We're only going to talk about our top three least favorites. So from we're getting to our worst. So, okay, we'll start out. My third least favorite, not my, does that make sense? My third least favorite.
Yes,
I
understand it.
You understand it, great. Our first least favorite would be our actual least favorite. Okay, makes sense. Might be surprising. I have it listed because I think we have a little running gag as if this is our actual least favorite, but it's actually my third. I have two movies I dislike more, and so number 3 on my list is The Bling Ring.
Not a surprise.
Not a surprise. I think we all knew this was going to be at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. I do have two movies I like less than it, but I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. But I'll mention that we watch our episode if you want our deep thoughts about any of these things. It had such a cool idea, like as a story. I think the execution was kind of where it was just, there were little pops of interesting things we talked about that shot where they're stealing from it, and that wide shot. That's really cool. I even liked that part where that one was singing and he was recording it from a webcam. It was an extended shot of him just singing. It's just like it. And then the Leslie Mann scenes were really great. She's great in it, and Emma Watson was really good, and that sort of family dynamic there was really interesting.
Paris Hilton's closet.
But for the most part, it was mostly just these people walking around houses and naming products.
Right.
That was, I would say, 70%, if not more, of the movie.
Way too much.
So yeah. Diane, what was your third least favorite?
My third least favorite was The Party's Just Beginning.
Okay.
Now, this is a movie that should have been really good, but was so depressing that you felt like after watching it that maybe you should go ask your daughter for antidepressants.
Or your daughter. She has
you have one. You may have drugs that you can buy. But really, seriously, I have never watched a movie that I felt depressed after watching this movie. Now, it may have been beautifully shot. It could have been all the technical aspects of a movie. Everything else could have been wonderful. But the way that I rank movies is based on, was I entertained? Mm-hmm. Or not. And in this one, I can definitely tell you I was not entertained.
There was interesting flourishes. So The Party's Just Beginning is not on my top 3, surprisingly.
I love looking at Lee Pace.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of those guys that are interesting to look at. That usually his characters are interesting to watch. Physically, he is definitely eye candy, but could not make myself watch this movie again, even for him.
Yes, it was overlong. I think we talked about how there are different pops of interesting things, like when the suicide hotline that she has a number off of, and that guy that she's talking to. There's interesting little parts. I love the opening where it's like that karaoke thing where she's like, I just think that was so like, and I wanted more personality like that on the directing side.
It died after that.
Yeah.
From that point on,
Lee Pace was heavily underutilized and like confusing character. If anything, it was it's number 4 on my list, so it's off the list. But yeah, I agree. It's
number 4 on
my least least favorite. Yeah, it's right. Yeah, sorry, no, it's not number 4 on my best. No, it's right off my top 3.
At 4 or 3, either one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who's your number
2?
Go ahead.
My number 2.
Yeah, your number 2.
My number 2 might be surprising because there was actually good parts about it, and it actually was. People liked it. Audiences and critics seemed to like it. I was not a fan. It's Freaks. I have Freaks as
really?
Yeah. I didn't care for it.
Surprises me.
I didn't care for it. And
other than the fact if it had another $100 million budget.
Mm-hmm. It was heavily.
It would have been a masterpiece.
Yes, I agree. The budget would have helped it a lot, and I thought Bruce Dern did a great job with it. I just find it was grimy and off-putting, and I found the movie to be off-putting in a lot of respects. And I know that was somewhat intentional, but it was trying to grasp outside of its reach at all times. And it's like, boy, was this budget it just didn't work in that sense. And I don't know. And I just didn't find it to be all that compelling of a story. And I love superhero things. Even we talked about on the last episode that this was I like The Boys and everything, and Boys is grimy and gross and everything, but it wears it on its sleeve, and
it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be. Yeah.
And so I can't really pinpoint it. It's just at the end of the day, I just did not care for it and found it to be pretty unlikable as a film. But some people enjoyed it, and it really goes far if you enjoy children actors, because it's from a child. And I don't really want to talk too much about that because she did her best and everything, but like it was that too a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is The Bling Ring.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. You can talk about The Bling Ring if you want to.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
When you get about halfway through that movie and you can't find yourself going, I have that. Every time they make another product, it was like, well, I don't have that, but I knew somebody had that.
Uh-huh.
Then you're going, okay, this movie is lost. Yeah. Well, so I had it as my number 2.
What was the script for that movie? This is my question.
Well, it was based on a magazine article about a true crime.
But was there a script? Did the script say they walk through Paris Hilton's closet and say Prada, Gucci?
Yeah.
Louis Vuitton?
Over again.
Yeah. Like, was that the script?
Pretty much.
Because
maybe that was ad-libbed.
I don't know, because and I don't know if they went into the editing room and we got to focus in on that, because quite obviously the Leslie Mann scenes were scripted and they were really sharp and funny and interesting and told about the characters, but Emma Watson, even though she was kind of marketed as such, she was the most famous person in the movie at the time. She wasn't the star. But yet that was the family that we focused in on and got scenes from. And so I'm like, did we have other scenes with their other? It's a whole crazy thing. I mean, we've talked about Bling Ring to enough, but it could have been fixed and it could have been interesting. So that's fascinating that neither one Bling Ring's not number 1 on either of ours, even though we talk about how much we dislike Bling Ring. So
what was your number 1?
This is fascinating. Yeah. We got recommended this. It was on several people. Some people like this. Another one people like. It's my number 1 least favorite, and it's The Endless. The Endless.
Mine too.
Oh really?
My God. What a horrible movie.
Great.
It's like it was never going to end.
That's your number 1? Oh wow! I did not. We did not talk about what our lists were. Yeah, that's my number 1 as well. Okay, great. We get to share this.
What a horrible movie. Don't watch it.
Don't watch it.
Do not waste your time watching this movie. I don't even know. I think it was on one of those free apps, like
It was Tubi, yeah.
Tubi,
Which
yeah.
I like Tubi.
I did too, but boy, this movie. You can't even get high and watch this movie and enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how bad this movie is. You would fall asleep.
It's one that's like, you would have to do some intense reworking to even like fix it.
Oh.
Like other ones,
Start
I'm like,
over.
other movies, I'm like, okay, just tweak that or focus in on that character or trim this out or shorten the acts and make that your focus and all that. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start with how to fix this movie. Cause I mean, so it's
so bad. This is what's so funny. You look at movies from a different perspective than I do because you have training. You understand what you're looking at. You know how to write scripts. You know how to shoot these scenes and what it takes to do that and what it takes to fill in CGI. I mean, all this technical aspect that you truly understand about movies. And I just watch them for entertainment. It's like, did I eat my whole bag of popcorn or did I get up and walk out? That's my two things, right? That's all I know. It's funny that both of us hate this movie.
Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea. And I didn't, I guess, recognize that, like, because when we talked about it and we talked about how we didn't like it, but at the end of the day, after these weeks of I've sat with it, I'm like, yeah, that is the worst movie we talked about.
That's the worst movie. I'm like, still mad you made me watch it.
Yeah. And it's like it's like it's not like it does anything. It doesn't do anything grand. Like it has the hopes of being this sci-fi thriller, not even thriller. Like it wants to be headier. I think it wants to be thoughtful, or it wants to be, but I think that's what it was going for. But it was confusing, and so much of it is left my mind. Even like I just remember bits and pieces of it of just being like, it was confusing, and I
remember a boat in a lake somewhere.
There were these bubbles, and it had an interesting premise too. Like they're returning back to this. They call it a UFO death cult that they had been a part of when they were kids, right? And they're coming back to this place, and why they were coming back, I don't know. The movie needed them to come back to that place, and so they go back to it, and it's like, that's interesting of them just seeing that. But I couldn't.
Do not watch this movie.
Do not watch it.
Write this down. The Endless. Don't ever watch it.
That's what I say. I didn't know that you disliked it that heavily too. I didn't know that. That's funny.
That was, to me, every other movie that we watched, besides The Bling Ring and The Endless The Endless is the one that was truly a complete waste of time.
Yeah. Well, it didn't seem long too.
Been watching it in a theater, I would have got up and walked out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the end of the first act, you knew this is not good.
Yeah. Well, you kept thinking. In my head, I kept thinking it was going to get better, so I wouldn't have walked out, because people had said it was good and that it was like underrated or something, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
and then,
67 on Rotten Tomatoes from the users. So
yeah, and so I don't know exactly what it's being compared to. If it's like compared, I think you even said that in our actual podcast. If it's being compared to other red box sci-fi movies or sci-fi thrillers where they bring in like some aged actor and then it's just this run of a mill, they're doing little CGI gun stuff, and then there's an alien or something. I don't know, these bad movies that people can get for free on things. I guess it's good in comparison to those, but but compared to just movies in general, no, it's not. Out of
the 30 movies that we watched, this one was 100.
Yes.
That's how far below the rest of them they are.
Yeah. And I must say, I'm surprised that Suspiria is not on your list. I guess that's good.
No, what I did first was I broke all the movies we watched into 3 categories.
Yeah.
The first category was, was I entertained? Mm-hmm. The second category was meh.
Yeah.
The third category was ugh.
Ugh.
It doesn't get much worse than ugh.
Suspiria was
Suspiria was in the category, but it wasn't the top 3 of the category.
Good, yeah.
End of Tour was in the category. And by I mean I wish I had not watched the movie.
Mm-hmm. So End of Tour. So to me, my line, this is crazy. I know because I think these are on opposite ends for you. But my line of where where it just inched over liking it versus inched over disliking it. That's how I ranked them. Is everything that was above the line and below the line. My line is End of the Tour is on the it barely creeps over on the I liked it side.
So it was like the line.
Yes, okay. It's the line. So
either better than End of Tour.
Yeah.
Or
yes.
That was a good way to do that.
Yeah.
Suspiria would not have ended up in the below that line. I mean, I would have had it above the line.
Yes.
Of End of Tour.
Yeah.
Because it was at least more interesting than End of Tour.
Yes.
But then again, almost every movie we watched was more interesting than End of Tour.
Yes. So that was my line movie. That was my movie that I judged everything kind of on.
I can't wait to hear your top movies.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
We're really close on any of those. Probably not. But.
Let's jump in. My number 5, which I get the feeling I think we've talked about this probably is higher on your list because of how much you've mentioned that you love it. But it's number 5 on my list. Bad Words. Bad Words is I think the best comedy movie that we watched. I think that's fair to say for what we've did here. It's a fun movie. It's wrong on a lot of levels. It's offensive, I guess, humor in some respects, but it works and it works for that character. And
you know what? I just realized I have 2 movies marked number 3.
Oh,
so that means I need to renumber these real quick. Let me do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My number 4 was Bad Words.
Okay. Number 4 is Bad Words. It's great. And I liked how thoughtful the script was and how like everything sort of like it was a script first movie, like where it was so tight and everything came back later and every scene served a purpose and it didn't go longer than it needed to. And it almost was like a well-rehearsed play. Like all the fat was trimmed out of it, and it was the best comedy bits hit, and it that they all had. It was well practiced and well done, and everyone understood their characters.
And he was irreverent.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
the way he treated the kids, the way he treated the adults, it was
kind of like a throwback to it's almost like a Bill Murray comedy movie is what it felt like in some respects. Because you could see somebody do that.
Bad Words to everyone that asked me for a movie recommendation. But yeah, because it's one of those movies people with kids can watch it with kids, and kids would get a kick out of it too.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, you had that as your number 5.
That's my number 5.
I had that one as number 4.
So what was your number 5?
Okay, my number 5 was Sing Street.
Sing Street.
I love that movie. I really did. I love I love the sensibility that John Carney brings to his movies. And this one, I fell in love with this movie. Mm-hmm. All I could say is, what is it? Lucy Boynton. It's one of her first big movies, and there was another movie that this John Carney did. It was the first movie I ever saw of his. That after I saw it, I thought, you know what? I hope I get the chance to see another one of his movies. Oh, Once. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I've never seen that.
Once.
I'll add that to my list. I haven't.
Yeah, you should add that one to your list. That one's a good movie.
Yeah, it's the only movie I didn't even mention that during it. I was like, kept be myself. Oh, I need to mention that. And never got to it. So this brings up a perfect. Sing Street's not on my top 5, but I did really enjoy it, and it seems like it'd be right up my alley since it's a '80s new wave musical about them starting.
Really, you would think it would be. Did you see Begin Again by John Carney?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh, that one's even better than Once. You need to watch it.
Yeah.
It has Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, I've seen the stuff about it. Yeah, but I haven't ever watched it.
Yeah. And so that whole whatever you call it that he brings to his movies that I just adore. There's a realness to him that I really, really love, and that's why that was my number 5. It's not a your.
It's not my, but I did say I want to Drive It Like You Stole It. It's a great song, and I've listened to that several times on my Spotify thing. So if it's worth just making that song, that's just a good song. You know, it's more Broadway musical than it is actual 80s new wave synth, which is fine because they sing it out, and they sing it like it's a Broadway musical more than they sing it like how a moody kind of removed 80s synth or new wave would sing it, or a new romantic would sing it. It's a little bit more kind of, I don't know. I don't know if about how singing, but they sing it out like it's a Broadway musical, like they're singing out to the back row. But but it's still, I enjoy Broadway too, so it's a good mixture of those two, I guess you would say.
Yeah,
those two styles.
Yes,
but
I love musicals, and this was a fun one for me, and I loved it.
And you have a smile on your face. It's a fun movie.
I was entertained.
It was entertained. So we have your 4 and 5, and then so I'll do my 4. My number 4, I love this movie, and that's Coherence. I don't know if
that was the one that I was struggling with it, and what did I say earlier? Chronicle is being my number 5, but I love that movie.
I've just thought, and I've just sat with it. That is such a masterclass in low budget movie making, and how you can like make a movie with there's I think maybe one special effects shot, and it's that comet, and that's the only thing. They have it twice, but there's only that, and it's just in the sky, and it's all the rest of it, and maybe what would that be, like 20 frame, it's not, there's barely on the screen, but all the rest of it is just people in a house, out in the street and everything, and it's just like this group of people, and how to tell this sci-fi story without it feeling contained. It doesn't feel like it's claustrophobic. It feels like it's a whole story, and it's just like these people that are just talking,
and you don't have it narrowed down to just 2 people talking like end of tour.
Yes. And it's
no point.
And it shows just how much you can do with filmmaking, and just with a good script and great actors, and it's no one's famous in it. It's all just,
I wouldn't necessarily call them great actors, but they
played the roles.
They played their role well, but with a good script, like you said.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
They were well cast, as maybe I would say. They were well cast.
Yeah, well cast. They were well cast. And then, and just using a camera.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of times when, like at trivia, where we're just talking about a subject.
Yes. It was just people talking, and and they were well defined of who knew what information, and how this character would react to this, and you understood what that character and their perspective was, and it never felt like some films I don't think that character would be clear they'd react that way. It was very clear that this is how this character would react, and it was very clear what these characters were, and it felt like these characters had relationships, and they felt real, even though we kind of looked into they didn't know each other and everything, but it felt like it was like this real close knit of friends and lovers and everything, and it worked, and they had a history, and
it reminded me of a really good Broadway play in that sense.
Yeah,
and what you can do with words and good direction and acting.
Yeah, I highly recommend watching it. And it was free on Tubi. That was the same week that we watched The Endless. So
talking about 2 opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Which, if I had only watched Endless that week, I would never have come back.
Yeah.
But because of Coherence, I did come back.
Yeah. And it I think shows also just they both were kind of low budget sci-fi, and that was unplanned, that we did 2 low budget sci-fi movies, and it showed that it really isn't the scale and money, and even comparing that to Freaks, you can make a movie with low budget and still make it interesting, and Coherence is a excellent example of that. So what's your, 3?
My number 3, you're going to hate.
Okay.
Ruby Sparks. Give me a good rom-com, quirkiness, and fantasy. The whole combination was everything I love about movies. Love this movie. Loved it. Loved the production of it. You know, the way that they did the apartments and the messiness of some of it and OCDness of other parts and how it added to the story. And I just love the characters. I love the writing. I love everything about that movie. And I know you hated it, but I loved it.
I didn't hate it. It is on. It's above the line. It's above the end of the tour.
It's above the line. It's above the end of the tour, which, let's face it, is just above endless. Yeah.
I liked it. I think that I liked it for different reasons than other people. I found Paul Dano's character very fascinating, but I thought he was a villain of the story, but other people didn't. You know, it's like so. But like I kind
of, you know, if you had to have a villain in the story,
yeah, and
the whole male fragility thing,
yeah,
you know, that you don't see very often in what people traditionally call rom-coms, you know, and but the fantasy element of that allows that to be explored more.
Yeah. I think that they could have been harsher on him because of that. And I also...
But she's married to him,
yes.
So she really could.
And I also thought that they should have explored the character of Ruby Sparks more. In a rom-com, you have kind of equal parts, both characters where you explore them. And I don't think that they explored Ruby Sparks, which is weird because it's her character. But I do think that would have been much more interesting to hear that perspective a little bit.
And it would be like every other rom-com.
Yeah.
She actually had more screen time than anyone in the movie.
Any other side character, yeah.
Than any other, yeah. Well, than even him. When you thought about, if you think about it, she had more to do than he did. He did one thing, and she did all these other things.
It was more to do, maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yes, that's it. And you don't have to tell me why.
No, it's fine. No, okay. I'm glad you enjoyed it and everything. And it's not bad. It's not bad. It's above the line.
Okay, so what was your number 3?
My number 3, which I don't think will be on your list, and it is one that's grown and grown and grown. And
I know what you're going to say.
I know.
Can
you know
I
what?
Tell you
Yeah, guess what it goes. You know what it is.
It's going to be Mississippi Grind.
Mississippi Grind, number 3.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be your number. I knew it was going to be in your top 5.
I wasn't initially. I'm like, what is this movie doing? And by the end of it, I'm like, oh my God, I love this movie. And I've sat with it and it's been something that I sit there and I'm like, and I keep thinking about it and I keep returning to it. And I love the ending of this movie. It's one of my favorite endings. I really, really, really love this movie about even what it's saying about the American dream and about what it's saying about how, you get I love when they do that on TV shows often where you have a character who has a focus and has a goal in mind. And it's you can't have that forever, in a TV show, because if that's their goal or whatever. And so they'll give them their goal and it's but is that everything you want? So that's explored in TV, but it's very rarely explored in a short, in a film length thing where it's it gives the character everything that they could have possibly wanted at the end of the thing where you think it's heading in a different trajectory. It's a rise, and it's immediately going to cut out and you know where this movie's going. And I love a movie that's so confident in knowing what you're thinking as an audience member and playing into that and knowing what an audience is thinking and undercutting that in an interesting way that goes in that completely sells the rest of the movie. It's so thoughtful and so interesting about how, okay, this character is given everything that's wrong. It doesn't end the way. He doesn't lose everything. And what does that say about that character? What does that say about him in general? What does that say about Gambler and in particular this character and both of them? What are they doing this for? Now you have everything, and what do you have left? Nothing. He doesn't have. He's ruined his with his child and doesn't have anything anymore. And it's fascinating. It's such a fascinating movie that I love that movie. I more and more I stick with it. It's just that is a fascinating movie. So that's why it's number 3 on my list. So that's not on your top 5, is it?
No.
Is it on your meh? Is it on your?
It was on my meh.
And I get it. At first I wasn't, but it's really left me in this place that's
It was at the top of the meh.
Okay, yeah. No, I found it very interesting. I found it very fascinating, and it set with me. It just keeps it. And Ben Mendelsohn is really, I think that Ryan Reynolds is good in it too, but Ben Mendelsohn, that character,
he really makes it. Yeah, I could see why you would have that in your top 5 for sure. Okay,
is that 2?
What's next? Number 2, Hunt for the Wilder People. Love that movie. I liked Boy as well, but the Hunt for the Wilder People is the best of those two for sure. And it was the most entertaining to me. I just couldn't take my eyes off the screen because I didn't want to miss anything. Because every scene, everything that was happening throughout the course of that movie added to it. It was interesting or it was hilarious. Yeah. And I didn't want to miss any piece of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really it was a really fun movie. It's one of those. It's well known in like indie things of you'll see a lot of this Odyssey type story about someone going on a journey and encountering these characters. It's really ripe for comedic potential, and I think this does it better than any of the other ones I've seen like that. It's a really good. It's not in my top 5. It's at number 7 on my list, but it's high. It's yeah.
There you go.
It's a really fun movie. And has
everyone I know that has watched it since I recommended it have really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I recommend people watching it too. It's
especially all the movie references. I just
to me,
I would watch it again just for that.
To me, the standout of that movie is the whatever she's a child welfare agent or something.
Whatever she has for a job. She's the standout in that.
She ends up being because like everyone fits into these roles of like American action movie, and so everyone like they end up just slowly turning into these archetypes, and that's so funny to me that like they're normal people, but I guess because of how much American media has inundated all corners of the world that they end up getting so enraptured by this media circus that they just become these archetypes. It's fun. It's really fun, and that one's the funniest. Is how she thinks she takes over as like this
she is hilarious.
She's great.
It's worth watching just for her.
Okay, my number 2. I would imagine this is maybe your number 1. I don't know. We can say not. I don't know though. It's Bad Education. I love that movie. To me, it's the most perfect movie that we watched. I think it's just, I said that in it, it's flawless. I wouldn't have any notes. No notes. It's it's nothing gets cut. Nothing more needs to be added. It's perfectly, I mean, given I would love to have more of it, but it would have kind of maybe distracted. I think it was perfect the way it was. I wouldn't do anything with it. It's beautifully shot, wonderfully acted, brilliantly written. It's just it just clicks every box. It's a true story, and it does the characters justice, but it also is critical of them in a necessary way. Like it tells you why that they're the way that they are, but it's not toothless. It's it indicts them, but it also, it tells them their story. And I really, 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 really enjoyed the movie a lot.
It's my number 1. The thing to add to all the things you just said, because I agree with everything you just said, the role that Hugh Jackman played was so different than anything he's ever played.
Yes. And
he just pulled that off without even breaking a sweat. I mean, It was so well done.
And it's such a specific character that like we have never seen in films before. Like that's a masterclass in acting of like and the fact that like he walks in like he's done these Oscar movies before, like he acts like he's like this is like nothing to him. Yeah. Or he acts like it's just like he's just this person, and we know that Hugh Jackman's not that person, but like he just is. He walks in there and just plays that character just to perfection.
From the time that you saw him in Wolverine the first time to now, such a huge, huge arc in his skill. I mean, I think I said this earlier about Emma Thompson. You never catch her acting.
Yeah.
Never catch her acting. He's like that now. he just becomes who that character is, and you just don't catch him acting anymore.
I mean, I think this is his best
Ever.
performance. Like this is that I've seen him do,
yeah.
and I hope he does more like this. You know, Allison Janney is in this too, or Jenny is in this.
Well, and she plays a character that you just don't see her play.
Yeah.
You just don't see her play this type of character at all.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very believable. I mean, in it.
She plays it more
really
naturalistically than some of her other performances are very kind of high, performances. And like this one's one that she's playing it because it's a realistic movie. And so she's playing it as that character would be played, where it's not like, it's not a performance like, where look at me perform like some of her stuff is, which is what the movie needs. Like some performances are that, and she's excellent at those. But this one where it's meant to be more naturalistic, she nails that, knocks it out of the park too.
Yeah.
She's one of our great actresses too that doesn't get enough credit, I think. And she has a very specific role that roles that she gets cast in. I'd like to see her expanded into more, but this is another excellent example.
Did you ever see The Help?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
She was wonderful in that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, she wasn't, like you said, she gets cast in certain types of roles. That was not a role you would ever see Allison Janney play, but oh my gosh, she was so good in it.
Yes.
So good. Okay, so what was your number one?
My number one.
I've been looking at this list going, which one? Is it going to be
guess?
Suspiria?
Well, guess. I want you to guess what it is. What do you think it is?
Suspiria.
I think it's Suspiria? No, it's not Suspiria. Suspiria is number 6. So it was right off of the list.
I know it's not Enemy.
It's not Enemy.
Or Hotel Artemis.
It's not Hotel. Hotel Artemis is below the line. Isn't that sad?
Black Coat's Daughter.
It is the Black Coat's Daughter.
I can, that one was almost in my top 5. I struggled back and forth with it a lot too. So I really, really enjoyed this movie. And I'm not a horror fan at all, but there was something about this movie that kind of took it out of the realm of horror. It was kind of like The Shining, in that you didn't know quite what to expect.
Yeah, it was more. I enjoy, like I say, I enjoy what I watch movies for. I enjoy themes. I enjoy performances and tone. That's an important third thing. One, and they nailed this tone in a way that like it just blows out of the water every other movie that we've seen, and other movies that just outside this tone of this movie. You can just feel this movie, and it takes you to this location in this place, and I just loved it. And you could just, I would watch that movie again right now just to see that, and I guess all these top 5 I would, but this one, you could feel it. It's cold. I love that. And not only that, I mean, the themes were really cool and interesting too, but it was just, I've talked about Shining, my favorite horror movie. It plays on that a lot about how it's like a empty location that's typically filled with people, and it makes it seem abandoned, and it brings up this because it takes place in the school during winter break, and just this idea of like this is typically a place where a lot of people would be walking and everything, but it's just completely empty in the dead of winter, and all the lights are kind of mostly out, or it's just ones that smattering of these lights here and there, and it's so isolated and cold and lone, and then it's obviously has this this satanic thing, which I love that in themes of thing. Any horror movie that deals with that, and it does it in this very interesting way.
It takes advantage of the cold and loneliness.
Mm-hmm. And then just
around it. Yeah,
that main character is very fascinating, and how the time jumps, like it's told in a fascinating. The structure of the film is a fascinating structure about like where it gives you information. It makes it a fascinating watch, and I would love to watch it now, knowing what I know again of what these characters are and everything. I highly recommend watching this movie. It's a beautiful film, and you feel it, and anytime you can feel that, and it never broke, and it didn't even feel like a film at times. It felt like an experience. And any movie that does that, where it's just like I'm in it. I'm 100% in it, and nothing's taking me out of it. It's broke the mold of being a film at this point. It is just an experience that you have to sit there and watch. I love the movie, and that's why it's above it. There's certainly things that I would do differently, or even would make notes of it and everything, but which is why, like, you know, Bad Education is, I say, it's flawless. This isn't a flawless movie, but it's more it's more transcendental, or
More of
whatever
an
you say.
experience.
It's an experience, and
I think that you've used that word, and I can't think of another word that describes it better, because it is experience. I can remember watching this, and it was warm that day when I watched it. It was early in the morning, you know, because I woke up early, and I thought, I'm going to go ahead and watch this movie. And I remember getting a blanket after the first 5 minutes and getting curling up under a blanket, because it was so cold, but it really wasn't cold. But it gave me that feeling, and so I had to watch it under a blanket because of that. Yeah. And, you know, I remember not taking a lot of notes for this movie, just simply because I was so immersed in it.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, anytime you can
maybe watch a horror movie. This is the kind I could watch and enjoy.
Yeah. And, you know, I wouldn't have thought, like, we've watched a lot of other horror movies, just a lot of other movies in general. I wouldn't have thought that would have ended up being my number one. If I would have guessed what was my number one, I would have thought Mandy would have been up near the top of how much I've heard about how great Mandy is.
And
I, you know, just from the cast and the way that, like, the trailers and stuff, I would have thought Hotel Artemis would have been up there. No, it's not. And, like, so it's like these things that these well-known movies and stuff that have gotten great things. I could see. I wouldn't have thought that this movie, Blackcoat's Daughter, would have got to be that high on the list.
Well, you know, of the I'm going to call it 4. Well, I take that back. 5 horror movies that we watch, because I'm going to include The Witch in there, along with Lights Out, Suspiria, Mandy, and Blackcoat's Daughter, The Witch. Right.
Mom and Dad kind of horror a little bit, but not really. It's more of a
not really
action.
No. Of those, Blackcoat's Daughter has the lowest rating on Rotten Tomatoes by users. And a lot of time, by the users. You know, it's tough because anytime you look at these ratings, people rate based upon whether they like an actor or an actress or not, and you find critics doing that as well. For how many years that you couldn't trust a critic on a superhero movie for nothing, because they just didn't like the genre. So everything was terrible, right? Yeah. So I almost hate to look at those ratings, because whether it's the audience rating or the critics rating, it doesn't necessarily mean the movie's good or bad. Yeah. Right? I would have never have ranked, let's see, which one was this? Lights Out at a 61 and Blackcoat's Daughter at a 50. To me, that's just, it's the wrong way. Lights Out.
And I've heard a lot of great things from Lights Out. I've heard more about Lights Out than I have Blackcoat's Daughter. And I
think it's just not as many people saw it.
I think that plays into it a lot too. And I mean, and it's a different type of film. I mean, it depends on what type of horror you like. I mean, they're completely different styles of horror. So yeah, I really enjoy it. And that is my highest recommendation of the ones, but all those 5. So your 5 were what? From 5 to 1?
Okay. From going backwards?
Yeah, going backwards.
Don't make me go backwards. Okay. It was Sing Street, Bad Words, Ruby Sparks, Hunt for the Wilder People, and Bad Education.
And mine was 5 Bad Words, 4 Coherence, 3 Mississippi Grind, 2 Bad Education, 1 Blackcoat's Daughter. So the only overlap is Bad Words and Bad Education.
Yes, the 2 bads.
The 2 bads.
The 2 bads. The 2 bads.
So take that what you will. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
You're more of a fan of horror movies than I am by a long shot, but I'm also more of I love musicals. I've never seen one I didn't like.
Yeah. So I think that shows, yeah. And also, I mean, I love horror movies, but only the one ends up at the top one, you know.
Out of all those horror movies that we watched, I have to give it to you that was the best horror movie that we saw. I liked The Witch too. I liked it, but The rest I wouldn't give you 2 cents for.
Yeah. So everyone's clear, we did not include Spencer and Good Time in this because those were hand selected beforehand. So I had seen it. That was a rule that I made beforehand. Spencer would be in my top 5 most likely. I don't know where, but it probably would be.
I didn't watch those.
You didn't watch those?
I watched part of Spencer's, but I didn't finish it in time for my rental.
So yeah, Diane wasn't in. You weren't on the podcast. That was the one episode you weren't on. So that was.
I don't think I watched Good Times at all.
Well, don't. It's some people liked it, but if you want anxiety, watch that movie.
I don't want anxiety. Let's not watch it. Please don't make me watch it.
Great.
I mean, I don't remember if I did or not, but anyway, so yeah, that was fun. I have to tell you, Cade, I have enjoyed the last 15 weeks.
Yeah.
14, I guess, for me, but of watching movies with you. As like I think I've said this before, that, from the day we met, we have enjoyed talking movies and experiencing movies together. And I, as much as I respect and admire your opinions about movies, I think that you at least respect mine, because I have gray hair and you have to. So there. But yeah, it's always fun to talk movies with you.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that you have a different perspective. I think that's what's great about it, and I don't think that we're completely too far off on things. I mean, like I like Ruby Sparks as well, and I can see how someone would like Ruby Sparks, and that's not a problem. Suspiria is probably where we diverged the furthest, but even that was a fun conversation.
I will, if you have to look for the good in anything on that, if somebody was going to watch it, I would say watch it so that you could just see what's her name, that I never get her name right.
Oh, Tilda Swinton.
Swinton play those 3 characters.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, if you didn't know that going in,
yeah,
you'd be shocked. You'd never know in a million years. It just goes to prove how versatile she is.
It also proves that there's good things in all of these movies. Like even that there are even
not the endless.
Not the endless. I struggled because like the other 2, we were like, well, there's this part in this scene. I really struggled to be like, what part was good about that? I mean, the bubbles.
Yeah. There was nothing good about that movie, and you're lucky I don't hate you for making me watch it.
All the ones that we said here today to watch, and all the ones we said to avoid, I think that we made good recommendations here, Diane.
Yeah, definitely avoid those. I would watch any of the ones that are in Cade's top 5. Mm-hmm. They were all good movies. All of them were.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Like, share, and subscribe, and rate us, and all that stuff.
That's right. It's a good review.
It's a good review. Great. We'll see you in August. Bye.
Bye.